right, so let's go over our transformation story. So that's going to be this page right here. And this is actually, you know, you always say, when am I going to use this? And I'm not sure if you're ever going to own a fishing camp, but if you are, then this is super helpful. Now, even if you're not, this is kind of talking about a real life situation. Daniel has a lake in his backyard. He's raising fish. He released 100 fish into his lake in 2005. So as you can see, in 2005, that's our year 0 right here. He released 100 because this is the number of fish in hundreds. This is our range. The number of years since 2005 is our domain. So in year 2005, which is right here, he had 100 fish represented by that dot. The graph represents the number of fish in hundreds as a function of time. So as time went on, how fish increased. So as you can see, they went up, 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 and then they started kind of going here, okay? So this right here is year 7, which would be 2012. So here, this span of time is 7 years. This has gone from 100 up to 1200, because this is in hundreds. And we're going to look and see how did it progress. So as you can see, graphs A through D represent the modifications from the initial year. And we're going to talk about this in terms of functions and in terms of transformations. So if you look at this first one, you're going to notice that Daniel's basically started in, maybe he didn't start, if this is 2005, he actually started in this year, which is 2 years later. So that would be 2007. And then here it is. And it's basically grown the same exact time, except for this is 9. So this is still a span of 7 years. Okay, this is still a span of 7 years. So this would be 2019. No, wait, I'm sorry, 2014. So what's happened? This has shifted over by 2. It's shifted to the right by 2. So the range has not changed. The domain has changed by going to the right by 2. So how do we reflect that in an equation? Well, we know that when you change your domain, that's what's in the parentheses. So I'm going to rewrite this function as, let's do y equals a function of x, and it's going to the right, so that's going to be minus 2, right? Because we know that negative is going to the right. And and let's use the letter t because that's what's being used here. So let's use f of t minus 2. Okay, so what this is saying is that the fish were released in 2007. And by 2014, they grew to 1,200. So the growth stayed the same, it's just 2 years later. What about this one? So this looks exactly the same. It's gone up the same amount. It's gone from 0 to, or from 100 to 1,200. So the range has not changed. So no change in the range. My domain, though, has now shifted from 2005 to 1, 2, 3, 4 years earlier. So that would have been actually in 2001. All right? And so let's figure out how we would write that. So we know the domain has shifted left 4. So we're going to write that as y equals f of t plus 4. Right? Okay, moving on. And this just means that the fish were released in 2001. But they grew exactly the same. Now let's look at this. Now we're noticing that there might be a little bit of a change in the growth because this, the domain, still starts in 2005. And the range has stayed the same, so there's no shift in the range, no change. But the domain has gotten smaller. And if I kind of just notice, that goes from 0 to about 3.5. Well, you notice that our first domain was 7. This has been cut in half. So we know that the x values, the domain, was cut in half. So we have a horizontal compression by a factor of, and you're all thinking 1/2, but it is a factor of 1/2. But to write that in an equation, we're actually going to do f of x to x, like this. Because remember, we use the reciprocal when we are creating the x and y. So the x and y points, it would be x divided by 2, which is what we want to do, okay, or whatever that is. Then, so this means that the fish population basically increased twice as fast. All right. And in this very last one, we see that our domain has stayed the same from 0 to 7, but our range has shrunk by half. So the domain has been no change. And if you notice that the domain in every single one of these equations, we have added numbers or have done numbers inside the parentheses because these have all changed the domain. Now our domain's not changing. So what are we going to do? We need to make sure that that number, whatever number it is, goes outside. This is a vertical compression. By 1/2 because the range shrunk from 12 to 6. So the y values changed by 1/2. So you're going to write that as y equals 1/2 f of x. Because when you have a compression, basically that just gives y times 1/2, like that. All right. So let's flip your page over and we will work on these. And hopefully if you guys have been following this, this will really solidify everything. So we are looking at a point of 2, 3. Okay, right here. 2, 3 is on the graph of f of x. How do I change? What is the new point with the new function? Okay, and so we're just going to basically do what we've been doing. So you start off with your point 2, 3. We are now changing, this is outside, so this is going to be a change in the range. So I'm going to basically multiply, the 2 stays the same, 2 times the y, which is 3. So my new point would be 2, 6. Here, again, it's outside, so this is going to be a change in the range. My original point was 2, 3. I'm going to add 1 to the range. So my new point is 2, 4. Here, again, it's a negative, so my original point is 2, 3. And if you go back In the last video, we talked about how when you have something like this is a horizontal reflection over the x-axis. And so you're going to basically have the domain stay the same, and it's going to be negative. And this you can find in this chart that we did in that last video. So this would be helpful, that chart. All right, and I forgot to mention that this is going to be a vertical shift by a factor of 2. Vertical shift by a factor of 2, and this is a vertical translation up 1. Okay, now this one, this is going to be a change in the domain because it's inside the parentheses. This is a horizontal. I think I may have misspoke. This should be a vertical reflection. Forgive me. That's a vertical. This is a horizontal. This is going to be a horizontal compression by a factor of 1/3. And so you're basically going to go from 2, and this would be 3 divided by 3 to 1. Okay? Then we go here, and this is going to be a horizontal reflection. So this is over the x-axis. Dang it. I mean, that's the y-axis. And so we've got, that's going to be where the x becomes negative and the y stays the same. So this is a domain shift. So the only thing changing is here. And again, if you're getting confused, refer back to this that we did last video. And then here we've got a change in our domain. This is going to be a horizontal shift to the right. And I know it's right because it's negative here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take our original point and we are going to add, I didn't do this very well. Well, let's just do this. Okay, so we're going to take our domain and we're going to say 2 plus 1 and 3, which will give me 3, 3. Okay, and now we've got this one, which is going to be another change in the domain. You've got a horizontal shift right. We're going to take our original point of 2 and we're going to subtract 2, which is going to give us a new point of 2 minus 2, which is 0, 3. Here, this is outside the parentheses, so this is going to be a change in the domain, in the range. And so we're going to take our original point, and we're going to say, okay, the domain doesn't change, but the range is going down 3. So that's going to be 2, 3 minus 3 is 0. So that would be our new point. This is a translation down. a vertical translation down. This is a horizontal. Where did I also forget to tell you? Vertical, vertical. Okay. Here we've got a horizontal stretch because the value is 1/2. So it's a horizontal stretch by the value of 2. Okay, remember it's a reciprocal. So I'm going to take the original point 2 and multiply it by 2. The range doesn't change. So my new point would be 4, 3. This would be the same as if you took your x value of 2 and divided it by 1/2, right? So when you divide it, it's the same as multiplying. All right. And then in this situation, you've got a change inside and outside the parentheses. So inside, this is going to be a change in your domain. And outside is going to be a change in your range. So we've got a shift to the left, a horizontal shift left by 2. We've got a vertical shift down by 1. All right. So how does that change our point? Well, we go from 2, 3. The x is going to be changed by subtracting 2. The y is going to be changed by subtracting 1. So my new point would be 0, 2. Okay? Moving on, and this is the very last bit. This has been an intense one, but it's important. So f of x contains the point -2, 5. What is a new function that transforms a to the following point? Well, what's happened is this, if I take -2 and go to -1, to get there I had to move from -2 to -1, which it had to move to the right by 1. And if it went from 5 to 5, it didn't move at all vertically. So if I'm trying to move this point to this point, I'm moving it to the right vertically. So if you were to have if you need to graph it, graph it. So I'm going to say this is f of x, f of, how do I make it go to the right by 1? You're going to add 1. All right, so only the domain changes, right? Only the domain is changed here. In this one, the domain and the range have changed. We are going from -2 to 3. Well, that's shifting to the right from -2. Think -2 over to 3. That's shifting to the right 5. So I'm going to say y equals f of x minus 5. And now it's shifted from 5 to 6, so it's shifted up 1. So this causes the horizontal shift. Inside the parentheses, this causes the vertical shift. The change in the y. Change in the y, this causes the change in the x. And this last one, now I'm going from -2 to -4. Well, that's going to be over here. So that's actually moving to the left by 2. Because to go from -2 to -4, that's going 1, 2. So in order to change that, I'm going to add 2, and the 5 stays the same. So no change to the range. So here you're going to have a horizontal shift. Just keep in mind that when it's in the parentheses, if it's plus, it's going left. If it's minus and it's in the parentheses, it's going right. Those parentheses lie. All right, that's it. Thanks, you guys.